Netflix used to be the place to go for marquee, prestige television, but in the past few years, there's definitely been more variation in quality. And then when shows do get massive critical acclaim, I'll watch them and they'll turn out to be not very good in my opinion. Sorry, hate to say it. So when Adolescence was getting all this buzz, I honestly avoided it because I assumed it was another middling show overblown by internet hype. But eventually I heard so many positive things about it from people whose takes I really do respect, so I checked it out, and after doing so, I think it's not only excellent, but one of the most important pieces of entertainment from this decade and for this generation of viewing audience, parents and youths alike. Adolescence, in case you aren't aware, tackles the subject matters of recent toxic masculinity trends, social media and its effect on the youth, and how various facets of society and people's personal lives contribute to these effects, through the story of a 13-year-old boy who kills a female classmate of his. Now, there are a few levels to how well I think the show is able to communicate its message. One is that, for the longest time, I don't feel like entertainment has really been able to catch up to what's been going on in our world in the past decade or so. Shows and films trying to deal with social media, TikTok, online grifters and influencers and all this, for the most part they've come off as out of touch with the how do you do fellow kids kind of vibe. And social and political satire has also had trouble keeping up with what some people call a post-satire world. Like, look at the last season of The Boys. To try to keep up with the madness of what's actually happening, they try to go so over the top and be so unsubtle about it that you really get the joke and what they're trying to make fun of. And even as someone who likes and is for the message they're trying to communicate, it's hard not to cringe at it a bit.
And most of all, we will make America super again.
This all leads to Adolescence, which is the first time I can really remember feeling a popular mainstream piece of media handling the online 2020s culture and its problems well and believably. It does it in a way that doesn't insult the viewer who understands and gets what this is about, but also in a way that doesn't alienate and can inform viewers who don't know what this stuff is about. It's honest and real feeling. Adults know what you would expect them to know about social media and internet terms, and when more about that is revealed, particularly by younger characters, it feels real and natural, and not like an adult writing a young person explaining internet terms like these things so often do. So out the gate, the show avoids the first stumbling block of a lot of modern pieces of media trying to communicate messages about online culture, social media culture, the rise of red pill, manosphere, right-wing content, in that it isn't so over the top and on the nose about it that it turns off even people who agree with it. The other part of the show that really makes it stick out to me is that I think it can genuinely have a positive impact. A lot of times with films and shows, I try to look more at the piece of media itself when assessing its quality, but the good that this show can do in the real world, I think is undeniable. And to illustrate that, I want to talk about the 1915 movie, The Birth of a Nation, which I know is an insane transition, but hear me out. Birth of a Nation is considered one of the greatest pieces of filmmaking ever made, while also awkwardly having an absolutely abhorrent subject matter and message. It's the story of post-Civil War America and the rise of the KKK, but from the perspective of the KKK being the good guys. Now, I've actually watched this film, and there are some scenes in it, particularly action scenes, where for a split second, your brain switches off a bit and the filmic techniques, the visuals and the music and the editing subconsciously go into your brain and tell your brain, this is pretty exciting, because it is absolutely exceptional filmmaking. But then that split second passes and your mind comes back to, oh yeah, but these guys are supposed to be the KKK, which diminishes the cool factor a bit, to put it mildly. I think it's honestly a film that is worth watching, even though it is a very tough watch, because it shows just how powerful film and storytelling can be. You can have the worst, most heinous messaging, and yet with such good filmmaking technique, it can draw you in, as the film did at the time of its release. I bring all of this up to say, filmmaking truly can have an impact on people and how they think about things. In that case, for a bad cause. In a lot of other famous cases, for a bad cause. And even as Adolescence explores, smaller forms of media, like stuff you see on social media, can use these powerful tools for a bad cause. And I think it's incredibly important and worth celebrating when these tools are used for a good cause, to communicate a positive message, in a way that might actually get through to some people who need to hear it. That's the key here. In this modern day age, it can really feel like it's impossible to convince someone they're wrong or they should think about things a different way. Because of social media, it feels like everyone is rooted into their ways and no one is actually going to change their mind even a tiny bit. Everyone's just yelling at a brick wall. The fact that this show is so well done and well written that I feel like it could genuinely change some people's perspectives, or at least influence them slightly in a positive way, is a massive win. And that goes back to the writing not being so in your face and over the top, but the show having an honest and real feeling to it. Exploring various angles of this situation and not giving you all the answers right away and letting you watch as the character of Jamie is revealed in a way that makes him probably quite relatable to a lot of people watching the show while not losing the monstrousness of his actions, which is a key in getting people to actually reflect on themselves and their lives and not just turn it off and go, yeah, that's a bunch of crap, to hook them and then get them to think about what's happening. And you don't do that by telling the audience exactly how to feel. You let them feel how they naturally will feel from the storytelling, the filmmaking, illustrating this situation in a way that someone who might not want to think about it the way you're trying to make them think about it might, because that's just how the story is making them feel. If you can hook people in with well-done filmmaking, writing, acting, believable characters and environments that feel real, I think that opens up the possibility of then showing them what real consequences and what real impacts things they do or think can have on them or others. And that can be the first step to some kind of change. Now, will someone who's super deep down a rabbit hole watch this and have some kind of revelation? Probably not. I'm not naive. But could someone who's teetering on going down that road have second thoughts? Or parents who let the internet raise their kids start to consider what kind of content those very impressionable kids are consuming hour after hour after hour every single day? Definitely. And in a time where, not gonna lie, the world seems kind of bleak to me right now, a piece of entertainment like this comes out that even in a small way, even just for 1 or 2 people, I honestly think could do some good. I think that's incredibly important. It's easy to think about other times in history, particularly the 60s and 70s with the civil rights movement in Vietnam and these big cultural shifts, and the art that was part of those movements, and in some cases shaped them, or affected their course, or how people thought about them. And I feel like this is the first piece of media I've seen in the 2020s that genuinely addresses a massive societal problem in a way that could have an impact. And I know some people will scoff at that comparison of what was going on in the 60s and 70s to this stuff. I'm not trying to compare them exactly. I'm just saying the impact this new thing of social media is having on people and will have on people for a while to come. It is a very real thing. I think in history, this time will be looked back on as when social media came around and we had no idea how to handle it. Kind of like how smoking used to be totally acceptable and promoted everywhere. Oh, your kid has a runny nose, give him a cigarette. I don't know if that was a thing they did, but you get what I mean. And then over time, people realize, oh yeah, this actually is a problem for people's health, and especially young people, and we should regulate this, etc. I think in the future, we're gonna look back on this and be like, how the fuck did we let people have such unrestricted access at such a young age, and what it does to children's minds? And, you know, I've had social media since I was a teenager, and I have tried to regulate it myself, and even I feel like I've gotten kind of fucked over by its impacts. And also when you hone in not just on social media in general, which I was kind of going on a tangent there, but on the manosphere stuff, for a while this stuff seemed like a underground sort of niche corner of the internet, like a flat earth community or something, you know what I mean? And like my friends and I would know about it because we are on social media, but like my parents wouldn't know about it, you know? But now it's clearly become a much more frighteningly mainstream thing. And so to have a mainstream piece of entertainment pushing back on that and shining light on it, I think is so important and so welcome, and I'm so happy about how successful it's been. It's crazy because going into the show, I at least was drawn in by the one take thing. I didn't even know it was a manosphere social media breakdown. I thought it was just like a well done one take thriller. And yet here I am going on about it, and I haven't even mentioned the impressiveness of the way the show was shot. Oneers have kind of become a dime a dozen these days. It almost sometimes seems like they're thrown in as a gimmick. They're usually still very good and impressive, but now it does raise a slight concern for me, like, okay, are you doing this just for extra points, or does it actually add to what you're trying to do? But here, it absolutely adds to the tension, to the reality of the show. You feel like you are here in this very real, very bleak situation, which is another vital aspect of it feeling relatable and real and drawing you in. And it gives you time with these characters to really see and feel their emotions develop and come out naturally. So when they, for example, have an emotional breakdown, it has more of an impact. And on top of that, it is really impressive. It's honestly kind of hard to wrap your head around that they pulled this off. Quick little story, for this short film that I made last year, we tried to do one single long shot, and it was so annoyingly difficult that we almost had a meltdown. From the timing of it to the lighting changing, you have to adjust the ISO and the focus and whatever, and we were literally just trying to move the camera from the window to the bed. I know this probably had a slightly bigger crew, but to ensure that not just the timing of it all works and everyone remembers their lines, but to have planned out the lighting and movement and blocking of these scenes that go inside and outside, that go from really intimate close-up emotional performance to large-scale, big set with tons of extras and movement. It is just phenomenally impressive. I mean, how the fuck do you get a camera onto, I assume, a helicopter without any awkward camera bumps and making it flow? It's crazy. And also, the fact that in that last episode, I was so engrossed in the characters and the performances that I didn't even really think about the one-take aspect of it is the perfect evidence that it's there to assist the story and not just as a gimmick. Also, on the acting, again, beyond having to remember your lines for this one-take thing and the pressure of not messing up, because then everything will have to start over, everyone in this is just fantastic, particularly Stephen Graham, Christine Tremarco, and Aaron Doherty, and Owen Cooper is obviously great as well. I mean, all throughout, everyone's great, but in that final episode in particular, man, Stephen Graham is phenomenal. Him and Christine Tremarco got me tearing up and everything. I will say, if this is a review, although it's loosely structured, as just a show, I do think it's fantastic. I don't think it's totally flawless. There are a couple of moments that break the realism. It's tough because when you make something super realistic, any moment that feels slightly movie or TV-like will take you out of it for a second, but there was never anything super egregious. I'd call that more of a nitpick. All in all, Adolescence is not only a really remarkable piece of filmmaking, but in my opinion, genuinely an important piece of media that I think could have a real positive impact. Whether it causes someone to actually rethink their lives, or just plants the seed to start considering the conversation the show is trying to have. It tackles a real, prevalent issue in today's society in a way that is not cringy or embarrassing or will cause people to shut off, but can actually engage a large number of people, some of whom would benefit from engaging with it. And honestly, I'm just very happy that this show exists. So those were my thoughts on Adolescence. Bit late, I know, I've been a little busy. What did you think of it? Let me know down below. And subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.